So this is our first spooky game of the month. Yeah, for me it doesn't run better, and it is just inconvenient because it chooses my biggest monitor, and I'm just like, no, please. Alrighty, well, let's give this a shot. Alright, Dagon is faithful to the interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on the story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here. The movement is limited to progressing through the locations along the plot.
I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Where am I? Oh, okay. Okay, let's see here. During the game, you'll encounter interactive elements. Some of them will be allowed to continue your journey, others will interact with facts, original short story, its historical background in the author. Some of the trivia is hidden in order to find the secrets. Focus your eyes and look for the Elder Sign. Ooh. As to letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topic in conversation. Indeed, this is gonna be the thing. I'm not good with, reading. Exploratory expression is with my largely replacing conversation as my condition of nerves I'm losing my spot, become more and more acute. I cannot bear to talk much now, and I am becoming as silent as the spectre himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. H.P. Lovecraft to Reinhard Keller, December 23rd, 1917. Through his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day, but his tendency of endless correspondence was relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing, thanking anyone for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line proposal or a 20-page treatise on the Rings of Saturn. Selected Letters, 1929 to 1931, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence have been published in various books, and selected letters have been found online. Some readers consider him as most important legacy. Interesting. Grabs popcorn. Yes, Neko! You can read and discover trivia. Okay. Mr. Husband just pinged me too. Hang on. Okay, so... Oh.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Ding.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
Okay.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death. It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercar...
Sorry, hang on one second. How is sound on my end, you guys? That was what I was going to check. Is it too loud? It looks like it's really loud. I'm gonna turn it down just a wee bit. Is this good? This is another thing. We hear clearly? Okay.
Dagon fell a victim to the German sea raider. The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due
This is
us
really pretty.
as naval prisoners.
Oh no, I could have looked at something. No!
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time. When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a
So
competent
pretty.
navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight. The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land. But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous. When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Why would you? I don't think I would be astonished. I'd be horrified as well. Like, this is pretty crazy.
For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Dagon seemed to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Ivan S. Cobb about a natural affinity between the hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake. Supernatural horror in literature, H.P. Lovecraft, and Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling through ooze that covered its surface. I dreamed the whole hideous crawl, and yet feel the ooze sucking me down. In defense of Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells, of his own words. I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old, but I could not recall what earlier experience gave me such profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. Dweller in Darkness, H.P. Lovecraft, 1927, Donald Wander. Yeah, it's very visually impressive.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
No fish. Yep, H.P. Lovecraft didn't like fish. Let's see if there's anything else. No, okay.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Oh, Brew, is that you? That looks like an isopod.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue. On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for the unknown goal. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip that. Okay, so we have that one. Do you have anything else? Okay, no, just that. All day I forged steadily westward, guided
fuck?
by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
What? Hang on, game. I want to look at this. What are these? That one's moving. At least I thought it was. Maybe it's just the light. There's a whale. So it's definitely something to do with our, like, plane of existence.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it. By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
What is those lights that are right there,
I know
though?
not why my dreams were so wild that night. But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain,
Ooh.
I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again.
So pretty!
And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Oh, there it is. I was like, where is it?
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me.
Yeah.
But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine.
Wait, I can't, like, look down. Wow.
I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim
There we go.
into a fathomless chaos of eternal night.
Ooh.
Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
A few hundred feet? Okay.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on
What?
the gentler slope beneath.
There's like
gazing
a
into the Stygian deeps,
pillar.
where no light had yet penetrated.
There's a pillar.
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which
Hey.
rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me.
It was the thing that first caught my attention.
An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Hang on, I'll look around just a little bit.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
Of course
A
not.
closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
I should probably do a dark screen for horror games, shouldn't I? I'll get that set up later. Alright.
For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Ooh, water.
Now near the the zenith shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Ooh, symbols!
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
Hey, it's Cthulhu! You guys see Cthulhu there? He's in the center. That's definitely a hieroglyphic of Cthulhu.
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like.
I'm gonna be real. I've been very impressed by this game, but the clip art used to make the hieroglyphics has kind of taken me out of it. Yeah.
Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world. But whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his latter works, such as telling the story through carvings at the Mountain of Madness in the Nameless City. The Mountain of Madness is one of my favorite H.P. Lovecraft stories. Journals and characters' notes, The Shadow Out of Time and The Hunter in the Darkness. Those are also both very good ones. Islands Emerging from the Ocean, Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Minigo, The Whisper of Darkness. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Yes, this is where I think the first one that he really started with it is. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also include in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the detail in order to not spoil the ending.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré.
Okay.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
They look like mermaids because of that.
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
Yeah.
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well.
Like this one.
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall.
Who are these? These are different beings from the different
Curiously
planes.
enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their seeming background.
At least that's what they look like to me.
For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Again, it looks like clip art. It looks like clip art.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Maybe.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Fiend-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I remembered then of my frantic ascent of the sloping cliff and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat. I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital. Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conversation, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticism to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry, and the concentrate on weird fantasy again for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during this period. An example, experts from the conservative, the master of horror fiction, explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than a conservative can fathom. Should their entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less attuite contemporaries in the wild career of conquest against the unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulse of human nature, human animal shall have miraculously changed. I mean, that is something. Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I think it's supposed to be, closely based on it.
Ethnologist, and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East, the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon is a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamian, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquest. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in the Assyrian poem and an underworld prisoner warden in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretations of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by the secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Fish. Yep. Fish equal bad.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries. It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches.
Oh, clutches as hopeless as slave.
So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Lovecraft hated tobacco. Even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kellner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidences his letter to Zillian Brown, dated 13th February 1928. As for a matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or constrains the delicate nature equipoise of the evolved human intelligence or imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance. My personal repugnance. Hence, I do not drink. Or I don't drink. Let the herd do as they will. I am rather in favor of the prohibition of any antisocial force as well as of any other. Source: The Spirit, Revelation, H.P. Lovecraft letters, blah blah blah. Okay. Bah.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat, after my escape from the German man-of-war.
Sure.
This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone
Wow! Controller shake.
their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Ooh.
It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Hey! That was beautiful. Like, I absolutely loved it. Like, the studio that made that, like, it feels like they really liked the premise of this and, like, really wanted to, like, tell the story and make it visually, like, feel like, you know, at least how I feel whenever I read, like, H.P. Lovecraft stories. That was really good! And I'm sorry if the mouse has been in the middle of the screen this whole damn time. Has it been in the middle of the screen this whole damn time? Damn it. I'm sorry, you guys.